Kent Hovind's CPA. Thoughts on Kent Hovind's recent arrest. This is an important point. I had talked about this on Twitter a little bit. For those of you who are unaware, Kent Hovind was arrested recently for domestic violence. Basically, his ex-girlfriend claimed that he body slammed her when they had an argument 6 months ago. Body slammed her 6 months ago. They put out a warrant for his arrest, and he showed up to the courthouse, from my understanding, and turned himself in and bonded himself out right then and there and left. That's my understanding of it. When you enter the judicial system, you are guilty until proven innocent when the investigations start. The investigators have prime suspects in mind and suspicions for how things played out, and they assume people's guilt when they walk into it. The courtroom, like actual court cases, you are innocent until proven guilty. It's reversed. She has no evidence at all. Zero. Naturally. Why would she? Would she pull out a camera and film the whole thing? Of course not. It was an argument that they had, and she had no reason to pull a camera out and film it. So there's no evidence that he did it. Doesn't mean he didn't. It just means there's no evidence for it. But you are guilty until proven innocent during investigations, and that's kind of the route that they're taking with it. So they filed the warrant for him, and they're going to do an investigation, and more than likely the investigation will turn up nothing because there was no physical camera in the room recording the events. He was recording the audio of the events at the time, but it's not exculpatory. It doesn't prove anything. He could have body slammed her in his perfectly calm voice. There's just no way of knowing. It's a he said, she said situation, and we have no way to know. And what's more, it's a personal situation with somebody's private life, and we have no idea what actually happened, and no way of finding out what actually happened. Everything is speculative, and for that reason, I'm not going to cover it on my channel. And I would discourage anybody else from covering it on their channels or anything too. Hemant Mehta wrote an article about it, and I appreciate that he did that because it gave me the context I needed to understand what was happening. But I don't think we should get into the personal lives of other people like that when we have no hard evidence of anything that happened at all. So we can talk about the fact that he spent 8 years in federal prison because he believes that you shouldn't have to pay taxes. He received those charges, it was investigated, and he was convicted for it and spent hard time in there for it. That's pretty indisputable at this point. But the personal situation going on, I don't know. I don't know anything about it, and neither does anyone else. We weren't in the room. We didn't see what happened. It's he said, she said, and we should avoid speculation, in my opinion.
Hi, this is Annie, she, her, from Banksy, Pennsylvania. I wonder, why do people think, or why do the Amish and Pennsylvania Dutch feel so peaceful? Living near them, they're some of the most bigoted, and being trans, they're some of the most bigoted and hateful people. I've been turned down at their little shops when I wanted to buy fruit or food or something. It's a little farmers markets. Why do people think they're such peaceful? And I don't get their reputation as to who they are. Thank you. Bye.
I agree. They should not have the reputation that they have. 100%. But the thing is, they separate themselves from society so completely that the only time anybody ever interacts with the Amish is when they specifically want to interact with the Amish. Like, you want to go on vacation, so you go into the middle of the woods in a cabin. You rent a cabin for a week or something like that. And there's a little Amish bakery right up the road you can go to. You buy from them, you go back to the cabin, and that's it. They're not really exposed to their views at all. They aren't online. They're not out there talking about it, trying to spread the word or any of that shit. But I found it particularly bizarre how shunning is viewed in the world, because the Amish are like the poster children of shunning. When I heard that word when I was little, I immediately thought Amish. It was just really strange to me that I had a positive perception of the Amish people, and of shunning. I just thought it was just a different way of doing things. I didn't realize how destructive and evil it is. You're right. The Amish religion should not have as good of a reputation as it does. But that's what I'm here to do, is to dispel these false ideas of what these religions are. I've talked about the Amish before a couple of times. I've talked about Mennonites too. Mennonites are kind of a branch off of the Amish. Apologia is actually ex-Mennonite. I should probably talk about the Amish a little bit more. They definitely deserve it. It's definitely a destructive group, terribly destructive.
Hey, Owen, this is Christopher from Minnesota. On the podcast a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that people who get disfellowshipped but still believe don't identify as Jehovah's Witnesses. I think you said that they call themselves believers in Jehovah's Witnesses or something like that.
Before we continue, I just want to, make my thoughts on this clear. They do often identify themselves as Jehovah's Witnesses still, against the wishes of the religion. The organization does not want you to identify as a Jehovah's Witness unless you are actually a Jehovah's Witness and, went through their organization or whatever. A lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who still believe it but got disfellowshipped for one reason or another, or just kind of parted ways, they do still identify as Jehovah's Witnesses, but they're not technically in the strictest sense of the term. Let's keep listening.
Basically, because to actually be a Jehovah's Witness, you have to be recognized as one by the governing body. This got me thinking, what do people do when they get disfellowshipped but still believe? Have disfellowshipped believers ever organized to worship together? And how would the governing body view a splinter group like that essentially believes the same as they do, but outside of their control?
They have dealt with things like this before. The governing body has kind of sects, S-E-C-T-S. Sects have split off from the main religion, but it's very, very rare, because the moment somebody starts disagreeing with the governing body, they're immediately excised. Everything is cut off. They have no contact with anybody else on the inside. That being said, Jehovah's Witnesses, the religion, is actually an offshoot of another religion called the Bible Students, I think. It's called the Bible Students. That was the original religion created by Nelson Barber and Charles Taze Russell. And eventually, Charles Taze Russell died in 1916, Halloween night, was succeeded by Joseph Rutherford, who became the first official president of the religion, the Bible Students. And the leaders of the religion, of the Bible Students at the time, didn't like how controlling Joseph Rutherford was getting. So over the course of the following 15 years or so, Joseph Rutherford basically executed what amounted to be a coup on the religion. He took over everything. It was a hostile takeover. He kicked out all of the old members that he didn't like, and he even went as far as banning people from wearing beards, because he didn't want anyone to be reminded of his predecessor, Charles Taze Russell, who had a gigantic beard. That is when the religion changed its name to Jehovah's Witnesses. He did a hostile takeover of all of the properties and the Watchtower Society name and everything, and then changed the name to Jehovah's Witnesses and banned beards in 1933, I think, somewhere in there. So yeah, that kind of thing has happened in the past, but surprisingly, Jehovah's Witnesses are a very uniform religion that has almost no offshoots from it. It's very, very rare that people create sects from Jehovah's Witnesses. Unusually rare, because sects pop up from other religions all the time.
Hi, Owen. This is Luke. I'm calling in from Arizona. When I was leaving Christianity, a big part of that process was the media I was consuming. I was young at the time, and most of the media I was consuming, whether it was TV or YouTube, has been largely satirical. And I was wondering, what are some content that you have consumed, whether it was TV shows, YouTube, books, comics, anything that helped, even though it was fiction or nonfiction, that helped you view religion in a different light? Thank you.
I think when I very first started to exit the belief system, I was watching YouTubers who were talking a lot about this. At the time, I was watching people like Logic and Armored Skeptic, The Amazing Atheist. I mean, this is like a long time ago, obviously. This is before the great anti-SJW split of like the mid-2010s. But all of those channels helped me kind of make my way out and realize how absolutely outrageous religion really is. Especially Jehovah's Witnesses, how absolutely outrageous that specific religion is. So there are the four horsemen of the apocalypse, what they call themselves: Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Christopher Hitchens. Those are the four horsemen. They went on tour with that title. I read each of their books on the subject. The God Delusion, God is Not Great. What was the one by Sam Harris? He wrote a bunch that were actually very interesting, even though he's got some really weird views now. Free Will was an interesting book. Lying was an interesting book by him. The Moral Landscape was interesting, though a little controversial. And then Daniel Dennett, I tried reading the book by him that he wrote about God. It was hard to get through, though. It was a little bit dry. But years later, like 5 years after that, right, I'm in college for substance abuse counseling, and I'm in one of my psychology classes, and right there in my textbook, my psychology textbook, they cited Daniel Dennett. The dude is actually really, really cited in the psychology community. As it turns out, I had no idea. That was kind of cool. One of the people that I respected and read about was cited in official college literature. Is very interesting. Same with Noam Chomsky. He's cited all the time in college literature, and he's like a hero, you know? So anyways, those are the materials that I read when I was first getting out. It started out with YouTube, and then I moved to the Four Horsemen's books. Of course, each of those, you know, a lot of those people have their own problems. You know, Sam Harris has his issues. Richard Dawkins has his issues. Christopher Hitchens was actually pretty right-wing. In fact, he was in favor of the Iraq War at the time when all of this was happening. Like, what the fuck? That's ridiculous. You gotta take it all with a grain of salt, but I still think their works stand for themselves. Curious minds in the Patreon server want to know, do you still get fan art sent to you? And if you do, would you ever go back to showing it in your vids at any point? I don't get fan art very often, and the reason is because I don't really have a place that people can send it to me consistently. I used to have, I used to be on the Discord server a lot more than I am now, and I had a fan art channel on there, and I had a lot of artists that were big fans of mine. I still do. So they would just draw shit because, you know, why not? They get their art featured in a video and everything else. Maybe if I get enough of the art, then I will put it in videos again. If you want to send me fan art, then you can tweet it at me on Twitter and use the hashtag Telltale Atheist Fan Art. Yeah, Telltale Atheist Fan Art. Go with that one, because Telltale is a company that, you know, completely separate from me, and I'm sure they have fan art of their own. So just go with Telltale Atheist Fan Art hashtag if you want to send it to me. I'm on Twitter a whole lot more than Discord now. Birdie Gamer Studios, is it true you really don't have time to play video games? I've had a little bit more time on my hands recently than I have in the past. I just don't play video games very often. It's pretty rare. Although right now I'm going through Pokemon Fire Red. As of like yesterday and today. Actually, it's a ROM hack of Fire Red. It's not Fire Red itself. I'm playing Ultraviolet, and it's basically a version of Pokemon Fire Red where you can catch every single Pokemon in the game. You don't have to do any trading with anybody or any of that stuff. And like Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee, you know, where you get to pick one, you can pick both of them up in this ROM hack. Same with like the Dome Fossil and the Helix Fossil, you just pick both of them up. So it's pretty cool. I like it. I've been going through, I think I just beat the 6th gym like earlier. The Fuchsia City gym. But maybe that's Gym 5, I don't remember.